Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jarret Johnson. I'm joined by the Mighty Joe. And well, Mighty Joe made it happen. You know, I think Kirby Hocutt actually probably said it best. It was inevitable. It kind of seemed like it, right? That it just wasn't working out. The Matt Wells era just was not working out at Texas Tech, and they pulled the trigger. Monday morning, Hocutt fired Wells, relieved him of his duties, promoted Sonny Cumbie to interim head coach, and then, of course, we just came out of the presser, Kirby Hockutt's presser, where he kind of talked about it. Just what was your overall takeaway from the decision, and then what Hocutt said today in the presser?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was when I got the news this morning, I was taken aback a little, because you know, I honestly believed that he would probably Matt Wells with the entire season, see what he could do. But you know, by the same token, you know, we could all sense that things were looking pretty grim, particularly after the K-State loss. We were talking about it in our podcast, how dismal the situation looked, and then particularly with these 4 ranked opponents coming up, these very difficult games. It just really looked like if he stood pat, the Tech wasn't going to have much of a shot for anything the rest of the season. And you know, I believe ultimately that was the trigger for this, was that, you know, if you had maybe a lighter schedule coming down the stretch where you had a real opportunity to get to 7-5, let's say, then this might not have happened. But with the Murderers Road coming up, and then on top of everything that had built up over these last 2.5 years, it was just, as you said, an inevitability is basically what it was. And so when it happened very, very quickly. It built slowly, and then all of a sudden the hammer came down.
Yeah, Mike Joe, I think that's a really good point. You know, when Kirby Hocutt was asked about, you know, is winning at least 6 games and going to a bowl game and being in the top 25 every year, if that was like a standard, or should be a standard for this program, you know, Hocutt said, yeah, absolutely it should be. And I was next to President Scubanek, and he was nodding the entire time. He didn't nod at any of the questions that I noticed. And he was like physically, almost not gesticulating, but like his whole body was like saying yes. So I'm wondering if Hocutt's feeling pressure, like not just moving forward, but what about for like this year? Like, do you think he's under pressure to have to go to a bowl game this season?
Well, you know, I think that the fact that Hocutt was allowed to actually pull the trigger on this, and the fact that he was able to form this committee to proceed with the search indicates to me that he's actually on fairly secure footing. I mean, it looks like everything is kind of, the groundwork is still laid, and that Scubanek still has confidence in Hocutt, and they'll give him, it looks like to me, they're going to give him one more shot to make this decision, and to me that indicates just a fairly high level of confidence. So, you know, I'm not sure that was really the case, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, it struck me when I saw him doing that, and then when you said that, I said, you know what, maybe there's something there. So
now, if Scubanek had been foaming at the mouth, like sparks and smokes coming out,
I don't know if he's that kind of dude. I think he was doing like equations in his head, you know, which would
mathematician
blow my mind, because me and math. But speaking of math, you know, one thing we haven't really talked about is that is about $7 million that Tech's going to be on the fence for. So that makes me think about this committee. You have 2 regents who are big money donors, and Cody Campbell and obviously Dusty Warble, who, I mean, we already know what kind of money he has at Texas Tech Athletics with the money he's put into the Warble basketball practice facility, and then of course the $20 million donation for the new football facility. You'd think those guys are going to have a lot of say. One would think, right? And who the next head coach is.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe paying off that $7 million is part of being on the committee.
Exactly.
I don't know if that's where you were going or not, but
well, yeah, infer what you want.
Yeah, right. So, but you know, it's going to be interesting to see actually how this works out with that committee.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I think a lot of people were sort of hoping that Tech would go with the search committee.
Yeah.
Because, you know, Baylor has had a lot of success with that. Tech had success with that back when they hired Mike Leach.
That's right.
And as improbable as it seems to me, these search committees seem to work an awful lot. So, but we're not seeing that here. Instead, it's kind of a halfway compromise between what happened with Hocutt hiring Matt Wells, where he was just lone wolf McQuade, the male rider, and all that stuff, rolling in with a high plains drifter, whatever you want to call him, off on his own. So he didn't go full search firm and turn the decision over to somebody else all entirely, but he is bringing in a committee to at least advise him, and we don't really know exactly what the mechanics are. Will those advisors, will they have any sort of executive authority, or is it a deal where they can just make a recommendation to Hocutt, and he can either accept it or veto it? That remains to be seen.
Just wonder if those guys are the type of dudes that are cool with that. Like, here's my suggestion, you can take it or not. You know what I mean? Like, especially if they're donating that kind of money. You know? I don't know.
I think so.
I'm not saying that Mr. Warble made that donation with any strings attached. I'm just saying he did make those, him and his wife, Alicia, did make those decisions, or donations. So, I don't know. It's interesting to me, that kind of stuff. And we'll be, I'm already talking, Joe can testify, I'm already trying to talk to people, hey, how is this going to work? How does this whole situation, this committee work and function? So we did find out that by state law, Kirby Hocutt has to himself actually make the recommendation. That doesn't mean he's making the decision, of course, but I think we all know that Kirby Hocutt's going to have a big say in the decision, as he should, as athletic director. It's all right. So, speaking of the next head coach, a couple of candidates have already emerged, and that makes sense. One of them is Jeff Traylor, who obviously has had a lot of success at UTSA. They're undefeated and ranked in the top 25 at UTSA. So, I've already heard from a couple of really good sources that Tech has reached out in some capacity to at least Traylor's camp. Of course, he's in the midst of that undefeated season. But I've also heard back that there is some mutual interest there. We'll have to see how that plays out. But what do you think about Jeff Traylor? What do you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, anytime you can win like that at UTSA,
right?
That's pretty doggone impressive. I mean, that's a program that hadn't even been around that long. He's the third coach in that program's history.
Wow.
He's got them in the top 25. So no matter how you slice it, that's pretty impressive. But I also feel that no matter who Tech hires out of this, whether it's Traylor or Sonny Dykes or somebody that's off the radar right now, I don't know. But whoever they hire, it's not going to be a slam dunk. It's just not. Because look, this is a very tricky thing. There's no real science to hiring a coach that you guaranteed is going to win. It just doesn't. Look, the University of Texas, take for example. Well, just look at all the resources, everything they have going. Nobody has more resources than the University of Texas. Not even Alabama. All right, but I mean, how often do they miss on their coaching hires?
Very often,
frequently. Now maybe that's
fun to say.
Yeah, it is. It brings a grin to my face. But the whole point is that Texas blows this a lot. There's no sure thing, and if it's Traylor, if it's somebody else, there are still going to be some questions, some reservations. I know that there's an awful lot of support for him right now among the fan base and everything, and everybody's going to be thrilled if he is the guy. Most people. But I'm just saying. It's one of those deals where you're going to have to show me. I'm going to have to see it before I'm convinced. You just hire the best guy that you think you can get according to your criteria and hope it works out. But there's no sure thing.
I think what you just said is how we interact with all the Tech fans all the time. Not all, but so many Tech fans all the time. And that is the one thing I think everyone seems to agree with. I'm not going to agree with Texas in terms of success. And who could blame y'all? And we're in the same boat. We're definitely, you just said you are, I mean, I am too. You saw how, apathy is a word that's used a lot. I was pretty apathetic Saturday. I was like, I'm not shocked that they did that, that they blew that. I'm not. That's what we've seen, So, final question. Sonny Kirby, interim coach, Kirby Hocutt was asked about the possibility of him, is this a rehearsal or on-the-job interview? Audition for him to possibly become the head coach, and Hocutt he was non-committal, about it. But he did kind of leave it open by saying, wouldn't that be a really cool thing? So, obviously the schedule's really tough. What kind of chances do you think Kirby has of actually pulling this thing off?
What I took from Hocutt's words are that he'd love to see that happen, but he doesn't expect it to happen. And realistically, it would take. Suppose he just wanted to drink. I'd say that would be
it for me. I'm like, sign him up.
That would be interesting.
What if they split? That's what I was thinking.
I think even if they split, that probably wouldn't get it. Hocutt would be, Cumbie would be a good guy. I mean, he's a local guy, Snyder, Texas Tech blood all the way through. With the transition, it could be very, very smooth.
And I've heard through this process, I'm sorry, Joe, I just wanted to add to your point, a really good point. I've heard the players really respond to Cumbie.
Right.
Like that, that's one of the reasons this has kind of happened.
Sure. So, and again, Hocutt used the term, in an ideal world, ideally, this would be a great thing. So now, do I think that the odds of this happening are good? No, I certainly don't.
They're not going to go beat up Oklahoma and Norman?
No, but what will be this game suddenly is a lot more interesting.
It is.
Just to see how this team responds to Sonny Cumbie. If we can see any sort of a difference, if they come out and play with their hair on fire. Yeah. I think actually, whereas before Wells was fired, Tech's chances of beating Oklahoma were zero. Nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing.
I know you don't
I'll
agree
bump
on
it up
like
to
that,
about.
but you're right.
Yeah, I'll bump it up to about 10%. Just because freaky things happen sometimes in this sort of situation. This changes like the emotional dynamics of the program. And, let's win one for the Cumbie or whatever. So
there you go.
You never know. So this game is at least is going to be more interesting.
I'll talk to the River out there. We'll get that shirt. Win one for the Cumbie.
Hey, all right, cut me in on the proceeds. All right, now.
Joe's already trademarked it. Money Joe. But man, we can go on. There's so many things to talk about. All of a sudden, we went from there's not really a whole lot to talk about to so much to talk about. We're going to continue to produce all kinds of content for you. So look for a podcast, Yeager Shots, coaching search, nuggets, of course, all kinds of stuff on Inside the Red Raiders. Money Joe, great stuff for you as always. Thank you. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.